I'm allowing Jill to step aside, the small self, Jill, to step aside and to allow the Christ to live in and through me. This is where the Christianity, the mystical theology of Christianity comes in, because Christ is still here in the world, present in the world, but needs a body, needs arms and legs and feet and a voice. And so when people choose to step outside and lay aside their own life, this is where it makes so much sense of things Jesus was saying. Jesus was teaching metaphysics, but he was teaching the higher path, the path of higher intention. Not the mastery and sovereign one. He could have done that, and he did do that. You know, the water into wine. All of these things saying, look, life isn't what you think it is. He was playing with the physical components of the wine and the water just to show these were signs that would make people perhaps take notice. But was that the end of it? Did he just want to train everybody to be magicians so that they all could turn water into wine and walk on water? No. He was more focused on the kingdom, and that's really the essence of his teaching, was kingdom teaching. And what the kingdom looked like, and how you enter the kingdom, and how you bring the kingdom to earth. Does that mean that earth will one day be Eden again? I don't know. I don't know. It would be nice if earth got a little bit better, if people were a little bit kinder and more loving. I also know you can't legislate for love, so you can't have state control along a Christian, ethos, because that takes away freedom. That becomes the form of communism, doesn't it? Or authoritarianism of some form. So that's not a utopia at all. Thinking of Handmaid's Tale, I'm just reading there's a book come out, I think it was 2017? Anyway, there's a sequel to The Handmaid's Tale. I just got a copy from the library and I'm working my way through that. Is it called Testament or something? I can't remember. I'll tell you. I'll look it up and tell you if I'm wrong, something like that. Anyway, it's not a dystopia. It's a kingdom on earth, is experiencing that wholeness and oneness, and where the resistance falls away, the separation falls away, and we can have moments of that. We can have moments of that kingdom awareness. In our hearts it begins, but we can have it where 2 or 3 or more are gathered too. Will it ever be the whole world? I don't know. But that's what we're working for. At some place, in some time, at a higher vibrational level, there will be this homecoming. And once you've grasped that and know that that's your mission, your heart is on fire for that. Nothing less will satisfy. Nothing compares to the joy that comes with being on board that mission. And where the Christian mysticism comes in is because you have Christ living in you. I mean, this is just, I say, out of this world is the term that's just come to mind. And it is out of this world, because there's nothing that can describe this. You can't really get your head around it, that somehow through using your free will choice to say, I want to step aside now, I realise that I'm at the ceiling of where I can get to in terms of my joy and fulfilment and happiness, and I want my life to count a little bit more than just getting me through, and I want it to be more than just about me. When you're really willing to do that, you're ready to step out of the small self. And that's when the wonders begin, especially if in that space, that vacant space, you allow or invite Christ to step in. And I'm talking about the mystical Christ here. And it has to be done by invitation. Has to be. Speaking to somebody the other day, and they said, the more I listen to you, the more I think maybe I'm a Christian. Because I agree with a lot of what you're saying. Maybe I'm a Christian and I'm not really sure. If you're not really sure, you're not. This doesn't happen by default. It has to be an exercise of will. Sometimes think about the church's ritual of baptism. When infant baptism. Babies are baptised and it's the parent that takes the child. But you will know that what happens with the parents and the godparents is that they have to make a statement, and the statement is about what they're choosing. Forget it exactly, but it's something like, do you resist the devil? I resist the devil. Do you choose Christ? I choose Christ. Or we choose Christ. Now, of course, the baby can't speak. So the baptism is really all about, the parents are choosing to bring their child up in the faith. And then when the child gets to a certain age, 7, I think it is, about 7 or 8, they can take some lessons and learn about what it means to be a Christian, and then they choose themselves, and that's when they're confirmed in the faith. Now, I didn't have my son baptised as a baby because I wanted him to know and understand a little bit more. And in my own tradition, Salvation Army, we don't have baptism or infant baptism. They have dedication. So the parents dedicate their child, and then you would become a junior soldier at the age of 7 or 8, and then you become a senior soldier. So there's like a second level of commitment. You make the choice yourself when you understand more. And so, in terms of can you become a Christian metaphysically? It's not going to just happen by default. The teaching is there, and the teaching helps you to be a good person, helps you to make wise choices, all those things about ethics, values, morals, really, really important to establishing a good civilized society. And when we lose those values, things do start to crumble, it's true. So there is a place for traditionalism, there is a place for institutional religion. And mysticism doesn't overturn that. It doesn't try to say that we don't need that anymore. It always builds on orthodoxy. It uses orthodoxy as a kind of premise. It's a given, and then we go deeper. We go into these other depths of mystical understanding that we would have never dreamed of, Truly life-changing. So stepping aside from my life, this is typically what happens. It's all there. It's all there in the... if I think back to my junior soldier's promise, it was about I accept Jesus as my friend and saviour and choose to follow him, and try to do my best to live a life that is pure in thought, word and deed, so on. So you've got that. But this choosing, inviting him into your life, into your heart, actually, I think it said heart. This is important because it's heart, it's not about the head. As my friend and saviour, so you've got gnosis there. Oh gosh, what's just come to mind is a song. I will use the whole song. I can't remember all of it, by General Albert Osborne, who was known as the mystic general in the Salvation Army. He wrote a song, and In the Secret of Thy Presence is the actual song. You can look it up. But the final verse is, first to know thee, then to serve thee, then to see thee as thou art. So first to know thee is the gnosis, and you have to know Jesus. And I've talked before about, as a little girl, I would talk to him. I just loved the fact that I wasn't alone. That was so important, because life is tough for kids. It's tough going to school. School is horrible. School is like really being thrown in the deep end about facing the horror of what life can be in the world. It really is. Because your parents that nurture you and protect you, they aren't there. You're on your own. You're on their own in the playground. You're on your own when you're lining up, when kids around you might be being mean to you or just ignoring you and you feel lonely and left out. It's really hard. Worst time of my life, and I heard lots of people say this, it all gets better, by the way, if you're a kid and you're at school. It does get better when you grow up in the adult world, because people just learn to be a little bit nicer, even if they might not really like you. They just learn to be polite, and you know, it's easier. But kids are just horrible sometimes to each other. It's all part of perhaps that character building, because it's how you deal with those things. But that brings us back to what we were saying earlier about the patterns that we learn and the barriers that we put up. But anyway, what was I saying? I was saying about Jesus as my friend, and I would talk to him, and I'd know that he'd listen, and I'd know furthermore that he was talking back to me. I'd start to just have conversations. I actually used to get to the point going into like teenage years that I couldn't wait to have the house to myself. My parents went out, and I think that's great, because so sometimes when I was in the meetings at church, in the meetings, we call them meetings, not services, and there'd be the lines of a song, perhaps by Albert Osborne, these beautiful mystical poetry in the Holiness Meetings, because holiness is about, it's Christian mysticism, really. We go really deep. When you're in the Holiness movement, we're touching on metaphysics and sacred alchemy in a lot of the teaching there. And I'd be so touched and moved sometimes that I'd almost feel like crying. And as a teenager, you had the, I can't let people see me crying, I'm so embarrassing, and I'd fight the tears back. So if I had the house to myself, I could then return to that, and I could have this conversation with Jesus. I'm getting all tingles as I'm talking about this. I could revisit that place and let the tears come and let the heart open, and I just had this incredible experience of peace and flowing through my body of joy and love and the presence of Christ. So I can look back and say this mystical path is one that I didn't know that then. I didn't know that's what it was, because it had very simple language in how it was explained to me. It was just being a Christian was knowing Jesus as your friend and saviour. And then I grew up, went into the real world. Maybe I went to a different church, like High Church, Anglican Church, and you start talking about your personal experience of Christ in your heart, friend and saviour, talking to Jesus, and it's like they look at you a little bit strange. It's not what we do, you know. I had to learn that I kept that private. So what I'm saying, that is how it begins. And then as the understanding of the theology, the Christology, and the mystical theology deepens, you understand what it means to say it's no longer I that lives, but Christ that lives in me. You know, and I must become less, that he becomes more. And your life really does start to change from the inside out. So at the physical level, you're carrying on living your life and going to a place of work, although that might change. Believe me, your life can be turned completely upside down once you sort of allow Christ in, and you're saying, use my body, use me as a vessel and a vehicle, and live your life through me. Wonders begin when the Lord comes in. That's just come to me, that's a song. Yeah. Wonders begin. So, that's the direction I'm going to be going in over the next few weeks. I was going to talk about this book. This is an example, Zero Limits, actually Joe Vitale, really quickly. Joe Vitale was one who would be at that sovereign level, you know, the mastery level, how to get rich quick, how to win friends and influence people and all of that kind of stuff. You know, law of attraction, The Secret. I think he was actually in the film The Secret, wasn't he? Then he met Dr. Hugh Len, I Haliatla Hulen, who was taught by Mona Simeona, in this practice of Ho'oponopono, which is deeply mystical. And it's actually Christian as well. Okay, you're going to say it's Hawaiian and it's from the culture of Hawaii and it's tribal and it's not necessarily, but Mona Simeona went to a Catholic and Protestant. She was influenced by that in her education and took that and kind of fused it with Eastern philosophy, and she was also influenced by Edgar Cayce. So it's definitely there. And I have said before, and I'll say it again, I feel that the Ho'oponopono method, and especially Mona's prayer, is the atonement. It's Christ in me continuing to do the atoning work for the whole world through me, through my prayer, in my little room, privately, in the secret place. Wonderful stuff. Thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know if there's anything I've said you disagree with, anything that's prompted you to ask further questions. We're going to go deeper, we're going to keep exploring, and we're going to start looking at the Christian mystics and seeing what they can teach us. Thanks for watching. See you next time.